Hi guys, it's Emily, and today I'm here to bring you another recent reads video. As always, I got 3 books to talk about, so let's just get right into it. The first book that I finished recently was Kid Gloves, 9 Months of Careful Chaos by Lucy Knisley, and I've been reading Lucy Knisley's graphic memoirs in publication order, and in July I read her wedding memoir, which is something new, so of course it made sense to pick up her pregnancy memoir in August. And this is, just like the wedding one, a combination of Lucy's personal pregnancy story and then also research she did about the history of pregnancy, the history of childbirth, the weird facts she found out, just other stuff she learned, things that her friends told her, things like that. So it's just a really interesting combination of the personal and the societal all in one. And Lucy Knisley begins actually by telling us about her miscarriages. She had at least 2, and she talks about how traumatic they were and how she fell into a depression, and then eventually she, found her way back to loving life again, and then she got pregnant, and she had a hard pregnancy, and she actually almost died of eclampsia in the hospital because her doctor didn't take her complaints seriously. So that's very traumatic, and she also in talking about that, she does talk about how the maternal mortality rates are rising in the United States in recent years, which is kind of crazy considering we're supposed to be, the #1 nation in the world. And yet we have this issue with mothers dying in childbirth. But yeah, overall, this was really interesting. I can see myself reading this if I ever got pregnant or adopted a kid. And I can also see myself giving this to people who were experiencing pregnancy, although she does talk about a lot of hard stuff, but she's doing it so that people are more informed about the realities and the hardships of pregnancies and miscarriages, because of course there's a sort of a taboo about talking about miscarriages, and apparently loads and loads of women have them. But yeah, so this was really good, and I definitely recommend it. I then picked up Book of Cats by Lesley and Ivory, and this is just a picture book that my mom gave me for Christmas last year. She found it in one of our local charity shops, and it's literally a book about Lesley and Ivory's cats. Lesley and Ivory, in case you didn't know, and I didn't know until I got this book, is an artist and illustrator who is famous for drawing cats, and her work is on t-shirts and dishes and greeting cards and all kinds of stuff. But it's literally just a book of her cats, and she shows a picture of each one. She's got 9 cats, which is a lot. And she shows a picture, and then she gives a little brief history about how she got them and their personality and things like that. There's also at the front of the book a little biographical section about her childhood cats. This is her as a kid with one of her childhood cats, and this is a drawing she did. So it's just a really niche book, but hey, if somebody's gonna pay you to make a book about your cats, you might as well do it. But yeah, this was really cute. Nothing amazing, but just a cute, fun, quick way to pass time. I then reread a book. I reread Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and this is a book that I read in 2015, and then I keep telling people it's one of my favorite books of all time, and I keep meant to rereading it. I had to actually put it on my list of books to reread in 2020 back in January, and then of course the pandemic came and I wasn't sure I wanted to read it, and I finally was just I'll start it, and if it's too hard to read, I'll just put it down, because I had heard from Emma at Drinking by My Shelf that her new book, The Glass Hotel, has some characters from Station 11 in it, and so I wanted to check this out first before reading that one. So anyway, in case you don't know, this is a book about a pandemic and the aftermath of it 20 years later. And the pandemic is the Georgia flu because it comes from the country of Georgia, which is over near Russia. And this pandemic is very fast moving and it kills people within hours of their getting it, and it's very widespreading, and it ends up killing about 99% of the world's population. And so we see the events of the pandemic very briefly, and then it moves into the 20 years later when society has sort of established itself as like a, a hunter-gatherer society again, but then there's also this potential we see throughout the book that there's signs of hope that we're going to be able to get back to sort of like not our society, but closer to what society was like before the pandemic. There's signs of hope of that. So this book is following. Well, okay, it's kind of a complicated thing because I would say the main character of this book is the young woman named Kristen that we follow. We first meet Kristen when she's 8 years old on the night that the pandemic begins, and then of course 20 years later she's in her 20s, and so we're following her. She is an actress, a Shakespearean actress in a traveling symphony that goes around the area around Lake Michigan and performs plays for all the local cities. And one night they come to a city that has been taken over by a man calling himself the Prophet, and they find out that the Prophet is basically controlling people and won't let anybody leave and is being very strict, and they get entangled with the Prophet. One of their players is a young girl that the Prophet would like to make his wife, and they say no, and they leave, and that ends up causing wider ramifications for their group. But in addition to that, every main character that we follow in this book is associated in some way with a man named Arthur Leander. And the book actually opens with Arthur Leander dying of a heart attack while he's on stage performing in a production of King Lear, which Kristen is in as a child actress. And so all of the people we follow, Kristen, his first wife Miranda, his best friend Clark, the paramedic who tries to save his life, Javine, all of these people are the main people in the book, and they're all affiliated with Arthur Leander in some way. And so we also do see some of the chapters are from Arthur's point of view, and we see his life before the pandemic, and we actually see what he was planning to do before he got struck down by the heart attack. But anyway, this is just a really great literary speculative fiction book. I am not a big speculative fiction person, as you could probably tell if you watched my channel any length of time, but this one I really, really enjoy because it's so focused on the characters. The actual pandemic part is a relatively small portion of the book. It's mostly about these characters, their lives before the pandemic, and then their lives after the pandemic. And it's a really great book. I definitely recommend it if you've never read it. Although I would say be cautious because there are, especially in the first few chapters, there is discussions of pandemics, people dying, people panic buying groceries, which, can be triggering for some people right now. So yeah, I would say, eventually when, life goes back to quote unquote normal, maybe consider picking this up because it's a really wonderful book. As for what I'm currently reading, I'm listening to Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert on audiobook. This is going okay. I'm not loving it. I'm not hating it. It's just whatever. I've had this book on my shelf since 2016, so I'm glad to finally get it read. I'm almost done with it. As you can see, my goal is to have it finished before the end of the month, which I think is totally possible. I've only got about 3 hours left, so that would be about an hour a day, which is what I've been averaged and when I listen to it on my walk. But yeah, this is okay. I'll talk about it more later. I also just started the Collected Letters of C.S. Lewis, Volume 1, which is the Family Letters, 1905 to 1931, and I own this volume and then volume 2, and I made a vow at the beginning of the year when I started working on my own unread books that I was going to read one volume this year and one volume next year. So I'm starting it, and I'm going to work on it throughout the rest of August and then into September, and then if I have to, I'll keep going. But my goal is to have this finished by the end of the year. It's 1,000 pages. I think I could probably get it read by the end of September if I really worked at it. As you can see, I've made a little bit of progress, but yeah, it's going fine. It's just what you think. Letters, he's in boarding school. He hates boarding school, so he's complaining about it. Pretty soon we're going to get into World War I because the war's already starting, but of course he's not old enough yet to really participate, but I know from reading his biography that eventually he does go to the front. So yeah, this is going okay. So that's all I've been reading lately. I hope everybody else has been reading some great books and that you're keeping safe and healthy. I'm looking forward to my September TBR. I'm going on vacation the second week of September, so I'm hoping to have some more reading time than normal. I hope to make a good chunk of progress on C.S. Lewis and then my other books, including The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel, which, as I said, has some characters from Station 11 in it, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I'll talk to you again soon. Have a good weekend. See you later. Bye.